The homelessness crisis on our streets, Theresa May's battles over Brexit, and the benefits scam used to fund terror. You're watching 5 News Tonight.
Your first night is really hard, you know, when you're on the street. Everybody that's homeless has had that first night where they're scared, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, where can I sleep?
Meeting the men and women, young and old, living rough in freezing temperatures. And I'll be talking to the boss of Shelter about a new documentary that revisits people who grew up in slum housing in the 60s. Theresa May faces battles at home and abroad over Brexit, as the EU says it wants the deal done sooner. And 2 men from Birmingham are convicted for passing money to a terror suspect in the Brussels bombing. Also tonight, we're talking about the controversial politicians nominated by Time magazine for Person of the Year. Donald Trump and Nigel Farage are the anti-establishment figures who've shaken up politics in 2016. We'll be asking what their nominations tell us about this turbulent year. Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbett. Every night in Britain, at least 3,500 people will sleep rough, with no proper shelter, no proper bedclothes, cold, hungry and tired. And it's an issue that's only getting worse, with numbers doubling in the past 5 years. And as Christmas approaches, the problem becomes more acute. So this year, a number of homelessness charities are joining forces to ask for donations so more people can spend the festive period in special shelters. Minnie Stevenson has been to meet one young man who could face a Christmas on the streets.
My 18th birthday, my mother woke me up at 7 o'clock in the morning and made me leave. I think your brain kind of blocks it. You just get used to it in the end. You don't think about it.
Andrew is 19. Nearly every night, the teenager sleeps by the side of the motorway.
Your first night is really hard, you know, when you're on the street. Everybody that's homeless has had that first night where they're scared, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, where can I sleep?
Sometimes, if he's lucky, a bed at a night shelter may come up.
There's only 18 beds, and there's like 200 homeless people that normally try to get all these beds and things, so it's kind of difficult to get it.
As the temperature drops tonight, Andrew told me once things became so bad, hypothermia set in.
I was sat outside, it was freezing cold, it was raining, and then my hands got jammed, all my face got jammed, all my body got jammed, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak in that. And, well, I basically recovered and then they basically let me change my clothes. They gave me some blankets and basically kicked me out onto the street again.
We spent the night on Bristol streets, home to one of the largest communities of rough sleepers in Britain. On every corner of this city, bedding on doorsteps with a person inside.
Just being out here, you can feel how freezing it is, but right now in Britain there are thousands of people who face the very real prospect of sleeping rough tonight. It's dangerous, it's frightening, but for so many people, this is their home.
But now, for the first time, 4 Bristol charities are joining forces, asking the public to donate to get people off the streets and into emergency night shelters over Christmas. This drop-in centre makes 600 meals a day. Many people pass through their doors. One of them is Christina, who tonight, for the first time, could be homeless.
All I've got are the clothes I stand up in and a few bits in my rucksack, and that is it. I've got nothing else. This is the first night. If I can't get into the shelter, then I will be on the street tonight. And with my age and my health problems, I don't find that at all funny. I really don't.
Are you frightened?
Yes, in some respects I am.
And it's a rising problem. The latest figures show the number of people sleeping rough in the UK has reached unprecedented levels. One charity told us the rising cost of rent means Britain's most vulnerable have nowhere to go.
I haven't really seen the situation on the streets this bad in the 10 years that I've been working in Bristol. Recently I've been talking to people who've had someone kick them as they were sleeping on the streets, and they've woken up not knowing where they are. Someone's kicked them, or they've been urinated on by someone who's just devalued them where they're sleeping.
And despite being homeless, Andrew told me he's still feeling optimistic.
I'm not planning always to be homeless, but I'm starting from zero. You know, I'm starting at... You can't go lower than this.
So do you feel positive about the future then? Do you think there is a future?
Yeah, I'm only 19. I've got a long way to go.
Charities hope that people's generous spirit this Christmas could mean homeless people like Andrew won't be homeless forever. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Well, it's a huge issue, and joining me now is Campbell Robb, Chief Executive of the housing and homelessness charity Shelter, to talk about it. Firstly, Campbell, just your reaction to what we've seen in Bristol. Is that being seen in towns and cities across the UK? And is that figure of 3,500 people sleeping rough, is that an accurate figure?
As far as we know, I'm afraid to say that street homelessness is on the rise, as is all forms of homelessness at the moment. Whether people are sofa surfing, they're ending up on the street, in hostels, in temporary accommodation. We produced a report last week, which we estimated about 250,000 people in England are homeless, from street homeless to all those different things. And it's just terrible to see, and we need to do something about it. And what we need to see done is a range of things. We need to see some more homes built that are genuinely affordable. We need to fix the system that supports people when they fall through the net. We need to get these people off the streets, particularly at this time of year.
When Shelter was founded 50 years ago, you sent a photographer out to the slums that existed in Britain then to photograph the people who lived in them. There's a feature of a documentary tonight, Slum Britain, that's on Channel 5. Slum Britain 50 years on, I should say. It's on Channel 5 at 10 tonight. It shows those people who lived in the slums then and now. Has much changed in that time, or has anything got worse, in fact?
What we see in these pictures is what everybody thinks of swinging 60s Britain, World Cup winning and things, and actually these pictures show how terrible it was for many, many people living 10 to a room in terrible conditions. What's good to see is that many of those slums have been knocked down, they've been taken away, and we don't see those widespread, terrible conditions street after street across Britain. Sadly to say that we at Shelter every day still see many people are facing some terrible conditions, that they are living with damp and children really not getting the conditions they need to grow up and thrive. That's not to say that that can't be fixed. And what we see on the last week from the government was some early indications that they're going to invest in housing and do some things different.
The thing with slums is they were very noticeable at the time. Is it the case these days that with homelessness or people living in temporary accommodation and other things, it's an out of sight, out of mind situation?
We do now have a much more hidden homeless problem than we did in those days. And the visible sign of people who are sleeping is one sign, but we work with people who are living for years in temporary accommodation, in bed and breakfast, so children in two, three a room living with their mum and dad. And that's the part of the problem that we have to solve, and that's what we're campaigning for. Just this Christmas coming up, 120,000 children will wake up in a home that isn't their own. So we don't see it as much as we do. That doesn't mean that the consequences aren't as bad.
The government we have at the moment is the third one you've worked with on this. How are they doing?
Well, they made some really positive signs last week. They look to be investing in some genuinely affordable homes. They banned letting agent fees, which was a massive thing for many people who are struggling to get a rental accommodation. So, fingers crossed, we need to see a long-term investment in people getting the homes that they need so that we don't see the type of conditions. But what the documentary shows is that people really can survive. Some of the case studies that are in this documentary, very moving, but they build their lives again because they find their own home.
Campbell, many thanks indeed. Slum Britain 50 Years On is on Channel 5 tonight at 10. And if you want to find out more about the campaign Minnie mentioned in her report or want to comment, head to our Facebook page by searching for C5 News. Now, after a day of pressure from all sides, the Prime Minister has been forced to concede ground on Brexit. She's agreed to publish the government's plans before triggering Article 50 by the end of March, she promised. It followed threats of a rebellion by some of her own MPs. That came after very tough talk from the EU's chief negotiator who said Britain couldn't cherry-pick the deals it wants. Our chief correspondent, Tessa Chapman, has the latest.
There was a Brexit development at every turn today. As battle lines were being drawn in Brussels, a Tory rebellion simmered in Parliament and debate continued to rage in the highest court in the land. Thousands of miles away on a trip to forge new trade with Bahrain, Theresa May met British troops and tried to clarify exactly what our exit from the EU might look like.
People talk about the sort of Brexit that there is going to be. Is it hard, soft? Is it grey, white? Actually, we want a red, white and blue Brexit. That is the right Brexit for the United Kingdom, the right deal for the United Kingdom. I'm ambitious for what we can achieve.
So that's cleared that up then. But the deal won't be down to Theresa May alone. In Brussels, the EU's chief divorce negotiator was giving his first official press conference. There'll be no cherry-picking the best bits, he warned, and he wants to get moving.
Time will be short. It's clear that the period for actual negotiations will be shorter than 2 years, and an Article 50 agreement be reached by October 18.
But back home, the Prime Minister is facing another hurdle. A Labour motion tomorrow will call for her to reveal more about her Brexit plans than red, white and blue. Clearly, she was concerned she might lose. This evening, we're told the government will accept the motion. Quite a climb down after months of refusal to discuss strategy. But the government is trying to bring the ball back in its court, adding an amendment asking MPs to agree to the timetable for triggering Article 50. It will be the first time they've been able to vote on Brexit. Labour indicated they will support the amendment and called on Mrs May to publish her plan before the end of January. But there are many strands to this story. Across the road at the Supreme Court, it's been day 2 of the argument over who has the power to trigger Article 50 anyway. Brexit might mean Brexit, but so much is still up in the air. Tessa Chapman, 5 News, Westminster.
A man from the West Midlands has been found guilty of giving thousands of pounds to one of the main suspects in the terror attacks in Paris and Brussels. Zakaria Boufasil, along with an accomplice who'd already pleaded guilty, handed the money to Mohamed Abrini during a secret rendezvous in a park in Birmingham last year. Most of the cash was taxpayers' money, having come from overpayments of housing benefit. Catherine Jones has more details.
It was in March this year that Belgium suffered its worst ever terrorist atrocity. 32 people died when suicide bombers detonated devices.
Stay down. Stay down.
2 targeting Brussels airport and 1 the carriage of an underground train. The 2 suicide bombers at the airport were with a 3rd man, who's alleged to be Mohamed Abrini, now in custody in Belgium. But in July last year, Abrini was in Britain, specifically in Birmingham, and he met these 2 men, Zakaria Boufasil, here on the left, and Mohamed Ali Ahmed. They met at this park in Small Heath in southeast Birmingham, where Boufasil and Ahmed handed Abrini £3,000, taken from the account of another man thought to be fighting with ISIS in Syria. The money in the account had come from overpayments of housing benefit.
The crux of this case is that you've got some people in Birmingham who have drawn money out of an account of an individual that we think actually is over in Daesh. That money is then being shared and put into the pot of money that's supporting Daesh.
Just 4 months later, it's alleged Mohamed Abrini helped the men behind the terrorist attacks in Paris, which killed 130 people. After another 4 months on the run, he was arrested following the Brussels attacks. Mohamed Ali Ahmed pleaded guilty to funding terrorism at an earlier hearing. Zakaria Boufasil had denied the charge, but was convicted today. Both will be sentenced next week. Catherine Jones, 5 News.
Now listen to this. Violence and verbal abuse have become routine for people working in our emergency services. That's what MPs have said after looking into problems caused by excessive drinking. They found some shocking examples. A&E consultants who'd been kicked in the face, medical staff who'd had TVs thrown at them, and more than half of female police officers reported being sexually assaulted. With me now is Dr Zul Mirza, who's a consultant in emergency medicine at West Middlesex Hospital. And Zul, do these things ring true with your experience?
Unfortunately, they're very, very true. We see a lot of patients who are quite drunk and abuse our doctors, nurses and porters. And as you said in your report, throwing objects at them. And it's very disconcerting for the staff working in the emergency departments.
How much of a difference would it be if you could take alcohol out of the equation? Would it be the biggest difference that could be made to improve A&E?
That would revolutionise our working in the emergency department, where we can work in an atmosphere which is conducive to actually treating the very sick patients and not be abused.
The problem is a lot of people who have been drinking alcohol are the sick patients themselves.
That's right, and therein lies the problem, because we have to treat everyone equally and we need to make sure that they don't have any other underlying medical emergencies that we need to deal with.
The report that's come from the all-party parliamentary group on alcohol harm it's painted a pretty stark picture of the scale of resources devoted to dealing with alcohol. By focusing on it and having to deal with it, are other people who haven't been drinking, or haven't got a problem with alcohol, suffering as a result?
Well, absolutely, because some of these patients can actually be quite disruptive in our departments. So it actually stops the department working efficiently and has effects on children in the department or the elderly as well. So it's actually very disruptive within the environment.
What measures then that have been suggested, for example, lowering the drink-drive alcohol limit in England and Wales to match what is a lower limit in Scotland, would that make a difference? Or putting a minimum price on units of alcohol, would that help, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. All the evidence suggests that actually having a minimum unit price will make a significant difference in the hospital admissions, but also lowering the drink-drive limit from 80 milligrams to 50, as they've done in Scotland. We know that just that reduction will have a 10% reduction in fatalities.
Just briefly, Zul, to finish, those things could take a while to happen. We're in the Christmas season now, people drinking a lot more than normal perhaps. What one thing would make the difference now?
I think now what we really need to do is have a public awareness campaign to highlight the dangers of actually drinking alcohol. We're not saying you shouldn't drink, by all means drink, but drink sensibly, but actually be aware of all the problems that alcohol can actually cause. OK. Dr. Zul Mirza, many thanks indeed. My pleasure.
Still to come on 5 News tonight. Why where these kids go to school might affect their chances in life, and the best gift a family could hope for at Christmas. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Now, you'd like to think that where you live doesn't affect your chances of a good education, but a new report has revealed a true north-south divide in England. While at primary level there is little difference in achievement, by the end of secondary education, those in the north have fallen far behind their counterparts in the south. Peter Lane has been meeting pupils and teachers at a school in County Durham.
The compass makes a difference. North versus south is driving a divide in education, but not in the corridors and classrooms of primary schools like Prince Bishop's in County Durham, rated outstanding.
What's your favourite Olympic or Paralympic sport?
And where a visiting Paralympian was inspiring the pupils today to reach their own gold standard. The fact is, though, that when northern children finish school, they're less likely to hit top grades or go to top universities than southern children. It's a bigger picture no one school can change.
It is frustrating as the head teacher and as an educator in the north that children aren't experiencing or achieving as well as their counterparts in the south because the opportunities available to them won't be as great, and very frustrating as both a mother and an educator.
The Children's Commissioner for England has said northern parents need to get pushier and more demanding, and has launched a year-long study to find out why the attainment divide is there.
Still got the accent and very much promote being northern at LSE.
Yorkshireman James Slater is studying at the London School of Economics. He thinks outside influences like business and parents do play a part.
I think within a northern setting, because there aren't as many bigger businesses set up within the north, that they don't cooperate on enterprise with schools. I think that there's an issue with parents cooperating with students as well, their own children, about what they do in school.
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. When I grow up, I want to be a teacher.
I want to be a hairdresser.
Runner. Police lady. DJ. I want to be a head teacher.
There's no shortage of aspiration here, and the North East primary schools are among the most successful. The challenge is to find out why a north-south divide appears as pupils move on from the playground and get older. Peter Lane, 5 News.
There's set to be a big shake-up in the running of England's railway network. The Transport Secretary says Network Rail will be stripped of complete control of the nation's tracks. Instead, it'll share responsibility with private companies. He says it'll reduce delays and improve services, though unions warn it could jeopardise safety. And the actor Peter Vaughan has died at the age of 93. He was perhaps best known for playing Harry Grouty in the sitcom Porridge, while he also starred in programmes including Citizen Smith and more recently Game of Thrones. A 3-year-old boy who's spent most of his life in hospital waiting for a heart transplant is looking forward to his first Christmas back at home. Elliot Livingston lived with a mechanical device for a whole year, and then just a few months ago, he finally got the donated organ he so desperately needed. Layla Hayes has been to meet him.
Like most 3-year-olds, Elliot Livingston is looking forward to Christmas. But for Elliot, this year is extra special because he'll be at home instead of in hospital.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I don't think a year ago we could ever have wished for this. It was always hope, 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 and holding on for the next day and seeing what that brought. I mean, you've seen Santa 3 times already and it's only early December. I don't think we ever could have hoped for this outcome.
At just 2 weeks old, Elliot was diagnosed with a rare genetic condition called dilated cardiomyopathy. When 5 News visited Elliot last year, he was in hospital, desperately needing a heart transplant. He survived by using a mechanical heart for 14 months before a donor finally became available.
You just feel so grateful that in that time they said yes to donating organs.
Yeah, you can't lose sight of the fact that in our happiest moment, someone else in their darkest hour is making the decision to kind of give someone else life. And I think that is, words can't describe how amazing that is.
Elliot is now enjoying the festive season like any other child.
Elliot's case shows us how organ donation can transform lives. Elliot's very lucky in that he received his transplant and he's obviously doing very well now. But there are still 6,500 people at any time who need a transplant. 150 of those are children.
How do you feel about the family who did this for you?
Unbelievable generosity to a stranger. I think it just shows in today's world where you see so many negative things in newspapers and on the news, how great humanity can be.
Without a transplant, Elliot may not have survived. But thanks to others' kindness, he's now looking forward to a very happy Christmas. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
Finally, the former UKIP leader and Brexit campaigner Nigel Farage has been nominated for Time magazine's Person of the Year. But he's not the only controversial politician on the list. He is joined by Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton and Vladimir Putin, as well as the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There are also scientists working in new DNA technologies, environmental activists, record-breaking gymnast Simone Biles, pop star Beyoncé and Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. What do you reckon? Who deserves to win? What does the lineup tell us about the year 2016? I'm joined now by political activist and comedian Kate Smurthwaite and comedian Eric McElroy. Good evening to you both. And Eric, first, as our American guest, Times an American magazine with a global outlook, does Nigel Farage really deserve to be on there?
Oh, I think Nigel's done some amazing things. And you could say that that sort of snowball that began with the movement of Brexit, you know, is what led to Trump. And Nigel's good friends with Trump, as we saw. He was the first British politician that Trump met with. So I can see why he might be the next ambassador, or at least he's trying to be. So, yeah, no, I think Nigel deserves to be on that list. It's pretty phenomenal what he's done.
Does he deserve to win, though, Kate? I mean, surely the elephant in the room is the one with the blonde hair.
Yes, and you don't mean Hillary Clinton, do you? I mean, the thing is, we should remember that
or
this
Boris
is
Johnson, for that matter.
Yeah.
He's not on the list.
We should remember that this isn't Best Person of the Year. This is Person of the Year. This is an award that has gone to Hitler, that has gone to Stalin, that's gone to Henry Kissinger. There are a lot of people overtly evil and sort of controversial over the years who've won. It's about having an influence. And I think, to be honest, that it's unfair to put Farage on that list. I think that really what we're looking at there is the Mark Zuckerberg nomination, because I think that actually, you know, it's not that Nigel Farage is a kind of genius who's magically changed politics. What it is that the way Farage has been amplified in the media and the way that voices like his, and we've seen the rise of fake news and this post-truth world, I think Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook deserve that nomination, you know, as much as Trump does. I think Farage has been one of the things that's been amplified by this strange media world we've started to live in.
But Eric, has Facebook defined 2016 more than the others on the list? I mean, look at Simone Biles in terms of positivity. Her achievements in Rio are huge.
Yeah. well, this isn't a year of positivity, I think, is maybe it'd be nice if she got it, but I don't think that's the overall theme of 2016 for most people. I mean, either way, whether Trump wins or lose, he's probably going to say the results are rigged. But hopefully he'll realize it's mainstream media and just refuse to accept it. But I mean, I think Nigel and Trump deserve to be on that list because, I mean, they tapped into something that other people weren't and changed the direction of Britain and they changed the direction of the United States. Now, they arguably used Facebook to do it, so maybe you have to argue whether it's the people behind the platform or not, but I mean, Zuckerberg's had it before, so really you should give someone else a turn.
Well, that's true. I mean,
Yes.
it's a very weird award, isn't it? When you look at somebody like Simone Biles, someone like Beyonce, I mean, they're both wonderful and inspiring women, and then you're trying to compare them with Narendra Modi. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, do you like grapes or peace? It's like, well, am I hungry or am I being punched right now?
And I wonder if Narendra Modi will like being on a list with Trump, Putin, and Erdogan, who perhaps are there for completely different reasons. I know you both think Trump is going to win it, and we'll find out tomorrow, Eric.
I mean, it seems like it's got to be Trump. I mean, he's had the biggest impact he's done. I mean, if you set aside whether you agree with the way he's done it, and if you agree with the fact that he's used the post-truth platform to do it, the way he's connected with people and the way he has turned over everything. I mean, he got rid of the Republican establishment, he got rid of the Democratic establishment, and I mean, even we saw with his call to Taiwan, he might be changing the establishment way we do politics in America, you know, and international relations. I don't know if I don't agree with the direction he's taking us, but he's taken us in a direction.
No, we discussed that right here yesterday. You never know that China could be the person of the year next year, or certainly their leader. But Kate, just briefly, I mean, who is missing from the list? OK, we think Trump's going to win, but who's missing from being nominated?
Well, there's a few people I think are missing from being nominated. You know, one that strikes me as very obvious is the sort of right-wing fake news media. You know, they do often give it to somebody that's not a person.
Yes.
They've given it to computers and the internet.
They've given it to you, as in all of us before.
Well, yes,
not you.
Yes. But no, I was one of them, though. Everyone who provides internet media content. And there's that. I think 2016, I'm surprised there's no nomination for death.
The Grim Reaper, I've got it written here, exactly.
I mean, he or she has had an enormous impact this year.
Huge.
I think a big year for death, actually. And when you look at some of the people we've lost this year, I think people are going to look back, and it's a shame, I think, to give it to Trump because I don't think this is the year when he's going to have the biggest impact. I think, frighteningly, that's probably the next 4 years.
Eric, last one to you. Who do you think's missing?
Well, I was disappointed to not be on the list. I told my kids I was going to be on the list.
Next year.
I thought maybe next year. That's my goal.
We'll try and put you on it.
Thanks.
I thought Boaty McBoatface could make it, but apparently it's not a person. That's it from us for now. Claire Nazir has the weather next, and Danny Sinha is here with updates throughout the evening. Bye for now.